The same with the Antichrist, same with the troops of Antichrist. So my issue is I firmly believe that this whole satanic ritual abuse, mm, you know, DID, MPD, whatever people want to term it, that's what it really is the master race that started with the Nazis. Hitler believed in a
Okay.
God-man mix, a creation of super soldiers that would have superpowers that could help on a global new order enforce and be the warriors behind it. So modern day satanic ritual abuse, when you begin to go track it back, it is what flowed out of Germany as the project of Lebensborn and the master race dream, which is nothing more than a satanic development. The demonic side guided them to begin this process. So it is. So when I talk about Black Awakening or chosen ones, please understand there's hundreds of thousands of these individuals in Canada, Australia, Pretoria, South Africa, South America, England, New Zealand, Ireland, Scotland, France, and even Russians. Now, we've been saying for years in the radio, now we have Russians because we knew that would be true. Everywhere the Nazi rat lines went, this development began. They continued with their dream, and it is arisen.
So with that, I did have one question for you because I haven't studied all of Nazi philosophy in very much detail. But can you, since you're saying there's a Nazi connection here in Germany, can you tell us just a little bit, and our listeners, I'm sure that a lot of them know already, but can you talk a little bit about Operation Paperclip?
Oh, sure. Operation Paperclip was simply U.S. military OSS before it became the CIA. Their goal of getting Nazi doctors out of Germany and bring them over here, which involved then them becoming scientists, whether in NASA, whether in the CIA or military. They became, they began to be used. But that occurred with United States military secretly bringing them in. Instead of letting them go to war crimes and so forth, they were just simply bringing hordes of them in. There's a lot of books out on this now, a lot of good information out on it now. What's lacking is the fact that the Canadians, the Brits, and the Russians all were taking these people in there too. And that's why I say wherever they went. So U.S. military brought in, and they brought in the German scientists, the Nazis. You got to understand, Nazis is not a political, secular ideology. It is a spiritually conceived, given, spiritually charged ideology, a dark side ideology that emerged out of the secret, societies, and out of just in our view would be a demonic development. Just as the coming new order and the coming Antichrist would be, this is a smaller type. So U.S. military took it in. U.S. military began to do this in the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. A lot of the projects, including NASA and von Braun and uh, Monarch Project, MK Ultra, all of this had behind this either Nazi doctors or what they taught, what their technologies were, including when we say satanic ritual abuse, multiple personality disorder, assassin shooters. Let me give you one name: G.H. Estabrooks. He wrote a book called Hypnotism. There's a chapter called The Weaponization of the Process. In this chapter, and I've got two of his volumes, and I've been kind of screaming this out because nobody's bringing this out. He defines how he was hired, and everybody knows this. I mean, he was hired by U.S. military as a psychologist, as one of the many psychologists, psychiatrists. He was world renowned, known around the world. He's a bigwig, but he was hired by U.S. military in the process of this Operation Paperclip, bringing Nazi doctors and scientists and others over. They learned the techniques. So he declares in his book they learned how to take U.S. military soldiers, create alter personalities in them. He even called it in the book multiple personalities. They could make a sub personality in a soldier. They could then program the sub personality without the main person knowing this through hypnosis and through the process that they were trained in from the Nazis. They could create an assassin, a reconnaissance agent, a spy, an infiltrator, whatever they could create whatever they program the sub part. If you think in terms of hypnosis, when somebody's hypnotized, say Joe, the football player, has been hypnotized, and then he's under the power of hypnosis, and in that trance state, he's told he's a 12-year-old ballerina, and he sings like Tiny Tim, and then right, and then he starts to do it. You've seen it on stage, you've seen it on television. So what people don't realize is, in the Ericksonian Institute, the hypnotherapist Corey Dunn-Hammond, all these guys in a mind control conference that we went to, they all say the same that we've always known. You've heard the dumb phrase, "Well, you can't hypnotize somebody to do something they wouldn't willfully, ever want to do." That's a lie. You can, yeah, that the point is right, and so that's a lie. They all agree. They understand this very well. You can hypnotize somebody deep enough to kill, to have sex acts, to go in a bank and steal. Now, G.H. Estabrooks, the world-renowned psychologist, wrote how they were doing this, and then he said in that chapter, we need to create these kind of super soldiers and put them in every department of U.S. military. This was a Nazi ideology, though. This is what they did. Now it's been brought over to U.S. military. And he says this, we need to put them into every department of U.S. military so that in the future, we'll have a fifth column of hidden super soldiers. The book was put out 1947. That's how long ago the military knew about this stuff. That's how long
Wow.
ago this stuff was known in higher levels of psychiatry and psychology. They already knew how to create Manchurian candidates. So that's why they came up with the Monarch Project, MK Ultra, and all the, sub projects with that got leaked out. And, they have some information of that out there in the FOLA, Freedom of Information Act, stuff that came out, but the bulk of it never did. Problem is, they never stopped doing this project, and it's continued. The Russians continued it, and the Brits continued it, and it's something that went. But here's what the problem is: U.S. military, Russians, the Brits, the rest took in the Nazi scientists through their programs. Ours was Operation Paperclip, and others. They didn't realize it's a Trojan horse. They wanted the technologies, they wanted to even sanitize or just simply weaponize the technologies for superior, nation states, but they didn't realize the spiritual agenda that came with it. They had no idea. I believe they had no idea. And so I believe U.S. military, along with Russians and the Brits and so forth, were highly spiritually infiltrated, taking the promise of advanced technologies, weaponization, super soldier principles, and even mind control issues that Sidney Gottlieb when the OSS eventually became CIA, Sidney Gottlieb, father of that technical services division. On the drug level and on the mind control level, it's massive. So you have Fort Bragg having psychic warriors, the Goat Lab, and learning these principles back as far as the 50s. And that's the origin of satanic ritual abuse today. The first ones that began to show up at psych wards in the early 80s, when you track their age group, it all begins in 1949, 1950, 1951 in the United States. There's a military side of it, but there's also a spreading across the nation by design. Now, let me give you one example that might help. In the United States, there's 56,000 Masonic temples. 56,000. And guess what? They're in every city, every township. And we most of us would say, well, no, not even know this, but we have to say why. It's by design. It's by design. And so the same thing with multiple personality disorder. They call it disorder. It's not. It's the creation of the Uberman, the master race, the troops of Antichrist. By design, from the 50s on, U.S. military has been infiltrated, U.S. law enforcement, U.S. government, the infrastructure, even the infiltration of churches by design began in the 70s with these kind of highly trained, programmed SRAs that we talk about.
Along with that 501c3 tax exempt status, right?
Yeah. Well, and the problem is, pastors aren't trained to discern covert, mind-controlled people that have sub personalities. I mean, this is I believe a demonic technology. I believe it goes against God's creation to take a human being. That's why we warn against hypnosis. Also, hypnosis is a lighter level of this. This is a the permanent trance, creating sub alters. Again, not our literature. It's not me. I could point to the world renowned G.H. Esterbrook's 1940s. He says that they could do this. He declared how they can do this, and they know, and we know this. It's very factual. But the other side of the story is that's the sanitized version. The other side of it is the entire United States, and I've been saying it for years. And here's the problem: what's happening now is churches all over are having problems with it. They're now seeing it. Every psych ward. We have a project we're doing right now called Project Confirm. If I was going to say anything at all, this is kind of quiet, but I'll say it now. Project Confirm. That's all it's called. I have one state where we've paid an individual investigator contacting every single city, every psych ward of every hospital, every counseling center, and asking them simply the question: do you deal with satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder? And guess what? Other than maybe one or two that would say no, they chose not to because they don't have anybody to deal with it. Uh, all of them. We have another person paid that is contacting every state capital in the United States, because what we wanted to do is begin to give actual statistical facts to what we've been saying for years. They're contacting every state capital to do the same thing: contact the hospitals, contact the psych wards, contact the counseling centers in the area, and ask them the same question: have you been dealing with satanic ritual abuse, multiple personality disorder? Do you deal with those kind of people? The answers are yes, 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 yes. Every psych ward in America, children. Now we're in the fourth generation. Listen, you asked me the question. I'll end up going for hours. We're down to four generations from the 1950s now. If nobody interrupts the 55 to 65-year-old now, if nobody interrupted them, their children, it's passed out. They're generational. Their children are going to be multiple, demonized, programmed, chosen ones. If nobody interrupts them, you go down to between the ages of about 18 and 28. That third generation, same thing. You go down to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 year olds that we're dealing with. You got multiple chosen ones, demonized, programmed. You have now four generations in the United States. Every city, every location. There's a reason why. These are the ones that are most dangerous, most lethal. They have been sitting in churches. They have brought disruption. Many of them not knowing, again, because of the victimization side of it. Some of them wanting the powers, wanting to do it, believing that they're part of a master race and an elite order coming. They're ready. Their words are, we can taste, we can smell Christian blood. So they're looking forward to the coming chaos.
I had a question that one of our listeners actually sent us. I'm just going to read from his email, if that's okay,
Sure.
real quick. He said one of the things that he's still fuzzy on when it comes to the existence of all these super soldiers, the SRA, DID peoples who are said to be scattered all over the globe in every major city and most communities now, is how it really works in terms of, are these people routinely taken into government bases / offices, whatever, in order to maintain their programming? Or is a lot of it done by local covens, or on a sort of scale, or on what sort of scale do these individual covens or cells or whatever understand that they are all working together preparing for some massive event?